deep in the remote valleys of western Mongolia, where the snow-capped Altai Mountains pierce the sky like ancient sentinels, exists a secret that modern civilization has almost forgotten. Picture this: only 240 human beings on Earth still practice a hunting technique so extraordinary, so deeply intertwined with the natural world, that it defies everything we think we know about the relationship between humans and wild predators. These are the Kazakhs, the last guardians of an ancient covenant with one of nature's most fearsome apex predators. They don't just hunt with tools or weapons. They hunt with golden eagles. Living golden eagles, 7-kilogram raptors with 6-centimeter talons and 2-meter wingspans that could easily kill a human being, yet choose instead to become their hunting partners. What you're about to discover will shatter your understanding of human survival capabilities. How does a 13-year-old boy tame a creature that could tear him apart? What ancient knowledge allows these nomadic families to communicate with apex predators using techniques lost to the modern world? And perhaps most mysteriously, why are these eagles, after being captured from the wild, choosing to return to their human partners year after year? The ethnographic evidence reveals something that should be impossible. These Kazakh families have preserved hunting techniques that predate recorded history, surviving through the Bronze Age, through the rise and fall of empires, through Soviet persecution, and now through the digital age. Yet their numbers are dwindling. With each passing winter, another piece of humanity's most extraordinary survival knowledge vanishes forever. What happens when the last eagle hunter dies? What secrets die with them? The Berkuchi, as these eagle hunters call themselves, represent something beyond mere cultural tradition. They embody a form of human consciousness that modern science is only beginning to understand. Anthropological anomalies that suggest our species once possessed abilities we've systematically bred out of ourselves through millennia of urbanization and technological dependence. Consider this first revelation. These hunters don't capture adult eagles. They seek out 4-month-old females just before they learn to fly, and somehow convince these wild predators to form partnerships that last for years. The process begins with what ethnographic documentation calls building trust. But what's really happening transcends anything our modern understanding of animal psychology can explain. The hunter approaches the young eagle with no protective equipment beyond a leather glove. The bird could easily escape or attack. Instead, through methods passed down through oral tradition, the Kazakh establishes what anthropologists now recognize as intersubjective communication, a two-way consciousness bridge between human and raptor that allows for genuine partnership rather than domination. But here's where the mystery deepens. These eagles aren't kept as pets or slaves. After 5 hunting seasons, typically when the bird reaches sexual maturity, the Kazakhs release them back into the wild to reproduce. Yet documented cases exist of released eagles returning to their human partners years later, choosing the nomadic life over complete freedom. What form of consciousness allows a wild predator to make such choices? The survival adaptation data reveals something even more extraordinary. In the harsh winter conditions of the Altai Mountains, where temperatures plummet to -40 degrees Celsius, These partnerships aren't just cultural curiosities. They're life or death survival mechanisms. A skilled Berkuchi and his eagle can catch 50 foxes, a dozen badgers, several lynx, and even wolves in a single 4-month hunting season. The fox fur becomes the difference between life and death during the brutal Mongolian winters. Without it, entire families would freeze. The hunting partnership doesn't just provide material survival. It represents a form of indigenous survival matrix that has sustained human communities in one of Earth's most unforgiving environments for over 2 millennia. Ancient oral traditions suggest that this practice dates back to the Saka period of the 2nd century BCE. Cave paintings in the region depict humans hunting alongside large birds of prey, indicating that this knowledge system predates written history. Genghis Khan himself was documented as an eagle hunter, and Marco Polo described witnessing these partnerships in the court of Kublai Khan during the 13th century. What's truly mind-bending is the level of interspecies communication these hunters achieve. Experienced Berkuchi claim their eagles recognize their voice, their footsteps, even their emotional states. The birds learn complex hunting commands delivered through whistles, hand signals, and vocalizations that sound more like conversations than training commands. But how is this possible? Modern wildlife biology tells us that golden eagles are solitary, territorial predators with limited social intelligence. Yet these Kazakh eagles display behaviors that suggest genuine emotional attachment to their human partners. They mourn when separated, refuse to hunt for other handlers, and demonstrate what can only be described as loyalty, a trait that shouldn't exist in a predator that views humans as potential threats. The anthropological evidence points to something that challenges our fundamental assumptions about consciousness itself. These hunting partnerships suggest that human beings once possessed what indigenous knowledge keepers call animal communication consciousness, the ability to establish genuine mental connections with other species. Now consider this pattern. Interrupt. While the world celebrates technological advancement, these 240 remaining hunters possess survival knowledge that no smartphone app, no GPS system, no modern technology can replicate. They navigate trackless mountain terrain in whiteout conditions, using techniques their ancestors developed before the invention of the compass. They predict weather patterns days in advance by reading cloud formations and animal behavior. They survive in conditions that kill modern humans within hours. Yet their children are increasingly drawn to urban centers, to modern education systems that don't recognize the value of this ancient survival matrix. The cultural extinction probability shows a terrifying trajectory. Within 2 generations, this knowledge system could disappear entirely. The ritualistic symbiosis between hunter and eagle involves ceremonies that modern anthropology is still struggling to understand. The capture itself is highly ritualized. Hunters create specific trap configurations using 7 wooden sticks, hand-woven nets, frozen hares, and a raven as bait. But these aren't just practical tools. Each element carries symbolic meaning within the Kazakh cosmological understanding of their relationship with the natural world. The training process involves what researchers now recognize as consciousness conditioning techniques. The eagle learns not just to hunt, but to perceive the hunter as a partner rather than a threat. This requires the hunter to enter what traditional knowledge holders describe as eagle mind state, a form of consciousness that allows humans to think and perceive like the bird. Consider this: these hunters don't use force or punishment to train their eagles. The entire relationship is built on mutual benefit and genuine partnership. The eagle receives protection during its youth, guaranteed food during harsh winters, and assistance in developing hunting skills that increase its survival chances when released. The human receives a hunting partner whose capabilities far exceed any tool or weapon ever invented. But here's the revelation that changes everything. This isn't just about hunting. This partnership represents humanity's oldest form of consciousness technology, a method for expanding human awareness beyond the limitations of individual perception. When a Berkouchi releases his eagle during a hunt, he doesn't lose contact with the bird. Experienced hunters describe sensing through the eagle's eyes, feeling its movements, knowing instinctively where it will strike. This suggests a form of shared consciousness that modern neuroscience is only beginning to acknowledge as possible. The genetic isolation coefficients of these remaining Kazakh communities have preserved not just cultural practices, but potentially genetic traits that enhance interspecies communication abilities. Their children begin working with horses at age 5, developing what researchers call animal empathy consciousness that most modern humans never experience. Recent ethnographic research reveals that eagle hunting families demonstrate measurably higher levels of environmental awareness, spatial intelligence, and what psychologists term ecological consciousness compared to urbanized populations. Their brains may literally be wired differently, adapted for survival in environments where human-animal partnerships mean the difference between life and death. The equipment used by these hunters tells its own story of ancient technological innovation. The baldak, a special saddle support that allows the hunter to carry a 7-kilogram eagle while riding horseback across mountain terrain, represents engineering solutions developed through centuries of practical application. The tamaga, a leather hood that keeps the eagle calm until hunting begins, demonstrates intimate understanding of raptor psychology that modern falconers are still learning to replicate. But perhaps most mysteriously, these tools aren't just functional, they're sacred. Each piece of equipment is crafted according to traditional specifications that carry spiritual significance within Kazakh cosmology. The process of creating hunting tools becomes a form of meditation, connecting the hunter to ancestral knowledge systems that stretch back to humanity's earliest partnerships with the natural world. The cultural adaptation mechanisms these communities have developed represent one of humanity's most sophisticated responses to extreme environmental challenges. Living at elevations where oxygen levels test human endurance limits, in temperatures that would kill most people within hours, these families have maintained not just survival, but rich cultural traditions, including music, poetry, storytelling, and complex social structures. Their mobility patterns follow ancient migration routes that optimize seasonal resource availability while minimizing environmental impact. These nomadic families move their herds and hunting territories according to calendars that account for wildlife breeding cycles, weather patterns, and ecological restoration needs. They practice a form of sustainable living that modern environmental science is desperately trying to recreate. Yet something haunting emerges from recent anthropological studies. The younger generation of Kazakhs in Bayan-Ulgi province are increasingly participating in eagle hunting festivals designed for tourist audiences rather than learning traditional hunting techniques. The Golden Eagle Festival, while celebrating Kazakh culture, has inadvertently created a performance version of eagle hunting that differs significantly from the authentic survival practice. Festival participants often use male eagles, which traditional hunters never trained because they lack the size and strength necessary for serious hunting. Some festival eagles are kept year-round rather than released according to traditional protocols. The ritual knowledge that governed authentic partnerships is being simplified into entertainment for outside observers. This represents a form of cultural erosion that threatens the survival of genuine ancestral knowledge systems. As traditional hunting becomes less necessary for physical survival due to modernization, the deep consciousness techniques that enabled human-eagle partnerships are being lost. Consider this final pattern: interrupt. While we celebrate technological solutions to climate change and environmental challenges, these 240 remaining hunters possess practical knowledge for sustainable living that could help humanity survive the ecological crises we've created through industrialization. Their understanding of seasonal cycles, sustainable hunting practices, minimal impact lifestyle design, and partnership-based relationships with natural systems represent solutions to problems that modern science is struggling to address. Yet instead of learning from them, we're inadvertently contributing to the extinction of their knowledge through tourism that transforms their survival practices into cultural performances. The psychological implications are staggering. These hunters demonstrate cognitive abilities that challenge our understanding of human potential. Their capacity for interspecies communication, environmental prediction, and survival in extreme conditions suggests that modern humans have lost fundamental capabilities that were once standard for our species. The partnership between Berkouchi and eagle represents more than cultural tradition. It represents a form of consciousness that modern humans have almost completely forgotten. These hunters maintain awareness states that allow them to perceive environmental information, predict animal behavior, and navigate complex terrain using cognitive abilities that most people would consider supernatural. Yet anthropological documentation reveals that these abilities aren't mystical. They're learnable skills that develop through childhood immersion in environments where survival depends on maintaining connection with natural systems. The tragedy isn't just that we're losing these hunters. It's that we're losing proof of human potential that modern education systems don't even recognize as possible. The ancestral knowledge systems these families preserve include sophisticated understanding of animal psychology, environmental cycles, sustainable resource management, and consciousness techniques that enable expanded awareness. This knowledge took thousands of years to develop and can be lost in a single generation if not actively transmitted. The time-tested survival protocols these hunters follow represent humanity's oldest technologies for thriving in challenging environments. Their methods for food preservation, weather prediction, navigation, and emergency survival have been refined through millennia of practical application in conditions where mistakes mean death. What happens when the last Berkuchi releases his final eagle? What happens when the last child who learned to think like a predator grows old without passing on that knowledge? We lose more than cultural diversity. We lose proof of human capabilities that our species might desperately need as environmental challenges force us to redevelop sustainable relationships with natural systems. The ethnographic evidence suggests that these partnerships represent humanity's most sophisticated achievement in consciousness technology, methods for expanding individual awareness through connection with other forms of life. The Berkuchi doesn't just hunt with an eagle. He temporarily becomes part of an expanded predator consciousness that includes both human intelligence and raptor capabilities. This isn't metaphor. It's documented psychological phenomenon that demonstrates the plasticity of human consciousness when properly trained. These hunters prove that our species once possessed abilities we've systematically abandoned through urbanization and technological dependence. As winter winds howl across the Altai Mountains and the last golden eagles circle overhead, searching for thermal currents that will carry them toward uncertain futures, we face a choice that will determine not just the survival of Kazakh culture, but our understanding of human potential itself. The 240 remaining Berkuchi represent more than cultural practitioners. They are the guardians of consciousness technologies that might hold keys to humanity's ability to survive environmental challenges through partnership rather than domination. Their knowledge systems offer alternatives to the technological solutions that have created more problems than they've solved. Their children stand at the crossroads between ancient wisdom and modern convenience, between consciousness techniques that connect them to natural systems and educational systems that teach them to view nature as resource to be exploited, rather than partner to be respected. Every eagle released back to the wild carries with it the possibility of future partnerships. If there are still humans who remember how to speak the ancient language of consciousness that makes such connections possible. Every young hunter who chooses traditional knowledge over modern convenience preserves not just cultural practices, but human capabilities that our species might desperately need in an uncertain future. The last families on Earth who hunt with eagles hold in their hands more than leather gloves and golden feathers. They hold the keys to forms of consciousness that could reshape our understanding of what it means to be human in relationship with the living world around us. Their survival is our survival. Their wisdom is our inheritance. Their partnership with the sky's greatest predators points toward possibilities for human consciousness that we've only begun to explore. The choice is ours. Will we preserve these ancient technologies of consciousness before they vanish forever? Will we learn from the last eagle hunters before their knowledge dies with them? Or will we allow humanity's most extraordinary survival wisdom to disappear into the thin mountain air of the Altai, leaving future generations to wonder what magic once lived in the partnership between human consciousness and golden wings. The eagles are still circling. The ancient knowledge still flows through weathered hands and knowing eyes. But winter is coming, and the clock of cultural extinction counts down with each passing season.